The sound of the gavel hitting the mahogany desk echoed like a gunshot through the silent courtroom. "Order!" Judge Harrison bellowed, his eyes narrowing at the chaotic scene unfolding before him. Liam Harrington stood tall, adjusting his bespoke Italian tie, a smirk playing on his lips as he looked down at his wife, Isabella. He thought he had won. He thought stripping her of her title, her home, and her dignity was the end of the story. He didn't know that the pen she held in her trembling hand wasn't just signing away a marriage, it was signing his own death warrant. Because Liam had forgotten one tiny, insignificant detail, he didn't own the Harrington empire. Isabella did. And today, the world was about to find out exactly who the boss really was. The air inside the Manhattan Superior Court was stale, recycling the tension of 1,000 failed marriages. But today the atmosphere felt particularly suffocating. The fluorescent lights hummed above, casting a sickly pallor over Isabella Sterling's face. She sat alone at the defendant's table, her hands folded neatly in her lap. She wore a simple, off-the-rack grey suit that had seen better days, a stark contrast to the opulence displayed on the other side of the aisle. On the plaintiff's side, it looked less like a divorce hearing and more like a board meeting for a hostile takeover. Liam Harrington sat center stage, flanked by a phalanx of high-priced attorneys from Bradshaw, Cohen, and Lee. Behind him sat his mother, Victoria Harrington, draped in a vintage Chanel tweed suit, looking at Isabella with the kind of disdain usually reserved for a stain on a silk rug. Beside Victoria sat Chloe, Liam's personal assistant, who was currently wearing a diamond tennis bracelet that Isabella had noticed missing from her jewelry box 3 months ago. "Mr. Harrington," Judge Harrison said, peering over his spectacles, "your counsel claims that the prenuptial agreement stands uncontested. Is that correct?" Liam stood up, buttoning his jacket. He was handsome in that sharp, predatory way, jawline sculpted, hair perfectly coiffed, eyes cold and blue. "That is correct, Your Honor. My wife, or rather, soon-to-be ex-wife, has agreed to the terms. She leaves with what she came with, which, if the court recalls, was essentially nothing." A ripple of snickers came from the Harrington entourage. Victoria leaned forward, whispering loud enough for the first 3 rows to hear. "Finally taking out the trash. About time, Liam." Isabella didn't flinch. She kept her gaze fixed on the court stenographer's fingers dancing across the keys. For 5 years, she had played the role of the dutiful, quiet wife. She had endured Victoria's endless criticisms about her common background. She had ignored the late nights Liam spent at the office, even when he came home smelling of Chloe's distinctive vanilla perfume. She had nursed Liam's father through his final illness, when Liam couldn't be bothered to leave his golf trip in the Hamptons. "Mrs. Harrington," the judge addressed her, his voice softer, perhaps sensing the uneven power dynamic. "Do you understand the documents before you? You are waiving your right to alimony, to the marital home in Greenwich, and to any shares in Harrington Enterprises. You will be walking away with 0 assets." Isabella slowly stood up. Her lawyer, a court-appointed attorney named Mr. Henderson, who looked like he hadn't slept in a week, nervously shuffled his papers. "I understand, Your Honor," Isabella said. Her voice was clear, steady, lacking the tremble everyone expected. "I just want this over with." "She knows she can't fight us," Liam sneered under his breath to his lead attorney, a shark named Gerald Thorne. "She doesn't have the money for a prolonged battle. She's broke. She's probably worried about paying for her bus fare home." "Just sign the papers, Isabella," Victoria called out, disregarding courtroom decorum. "Stop wasting my son's valuable time. We have a reservation at Le Bernardin to celebrate." Judge Harrison banged his gavel. One more outburst from the gallery, Mrs. Harrington, and I will have you removed." Victoria huffed, crossing her arms, but fell silent. Isabella looked at Liam. For a split second, their eyes met. She saw triumph in his gaze. He truly believed he was the king of the world, discarding a used toy. He had no idea that the poverty she lived in was a choice, a test that he and his family had failed spectacularly. "Very well," the judge sighed. "The bailiff will present the papers for signature." As the bailiff walked the thick stack of documents over to Isabella's table, the doors to the back of the courtroom creaked open. A man walked in. He didn't look like a spectator. He wore a suit that cost more than the judge's car, Savile Row tailoring, midnight blue, and carried a leather briefcase stamped with a gold crest. He walked with a silent, terrifying confidence. Liam frowned, turning his head. "Who is that?" Gerald Thorne, Liam's lawyer, squinted. His face suddenly went pale. "That looks like Albert Pendleton." "Who cares?" Liam snapped. "You should care," Thorne hissed. "He's the managing partner for Sterling Global. They own half of Europe." Isabella didn't look back at the newcomer. She just picked up the pen. The bailiff pointed to the dotted line. "Sign here to dissolve the marriage. Sign here to waive all claims to the Harrington estate." She pressed the pen to the paper. The ink flowed smoothly. Isabella Sterling. She dropped the pen. The sound was deafening in the silence. "It is done," Isabella said, finally turning to look at Liam. "I am no longer a Harrington." Liam let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. He laughed, a short barking sound. "Good riddance. Now get out. I believe the bailiffs can escort you to the street." "Not just yet," the man in the midnight blue suit spoke up from the back of the room. His voice was baritone and commanded instant obedience. "There is the matter of the countersuit regarding the ownership of the courtroom we are currently standing in, and the company Mr. Harrington claims to run." "Excuse me?" Judge Harrison asked, bewildered. "Who are you?" The man walked through the gate, ignoring the bailiff's protest, and placed a single, thin file on the judge's bench. "I am Albert Pendleton, representing Sterling Global Holdings," he said, adjusting his cufflinks. "And I am here to inform the court that Mr. Harrington has just divorced the owner of his company." Silence. Absolute, suffocating silence. It was as if the oxygen had been sucked out of the room. Liam blinked, his smirk frozen in a grotesque mask of confusion. "What kind of joke is this?" he demanded, standing up abruptly. "Sterling Global? We have nothing to do with them. Harrington Enterprises has been in my family for 3 generations." "Sit down, Mr. Harrington," Judge Harrison barked, picking up the file Albert had placed before him. He opened it, his eyes scanning the first page. His eyebrows shot up toward his hairline. He looked at the document, then at Isabella, then back at the document. "Mr. Pendleton," the judge said, his voice shaking slightly. "Is this authenticated?" "Notarized, certified, and filed with the SEC as of this morning, Your Honor," Albert replied smoothly, taking a position beside Isabella. He didn't look at her. He stood behind her, like a guard dog protecting its master. "This is ridiculous!" Victoria shrieked from the gallery, standing up and pointing a manicured finger at Isabella. "She's a waitress. We found her working at a diner in Brooklyn. She doesn't own anything. She's a gold digger who failed to dig any gold." Isabella finally turned to face her mother-in-law. The defeated posture was gone. She stood straighter, her chin lifted. The transformation was subtle but terrifying. The mousy wife was gone. In her place stood someone cold and regal. "I was working at that diner because I wanted to understand the operational logistics of the food service industry before I acquired the chain, Victoria," Isabella said calmly. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried to every corner of the room. And I didn't marry Liam for his money. I have significantly more than he does." "Lies!" Liam shouted. "Judge, this is a stall tactic. Harrington Enterprises is mine. I am the CEO." "You are the CEO," Isabella corrected him, "appointed by the board of directors. And do you know who owns the majority controlling interest in that board?" Liam froze. He looked at his lawyer, Gerald Thorne. Thorne was frantically typing on his tablet, sweat beading on his forehead. "Liam," Thorne whispered, his voice trembling. "I'm looking at the corporate structure now, the parent company. It was acquired 5 years ago by a holding shell called Nebula Ventures." "So? Nebula Ventures is just some investment fund," Liam snapped. "Look at the owner of Nebula Ventures," Isabella said softly. Thorne tapped the screen. His face went grey. He looked up at Liam, his eyes wide with horror. "Nebula Ventures is a wholly owned subsidiary of Sterling Global. The sole proprietor of Sterling Global is Isabella Sterling." Liam felt the room spin. He gripped the edge of the table. "No, that's impossible. We did a background check on you when we met." "You did a background check on Isabella Smith," Albert Pendleton interjected. "You never bothered to check her birth certificate, or the trust fund established by her grandfather, the late oil tycoon Tobias Sterling. She used her mother's maiden name to avoid parasites." Albert's eyes flicked toward Victoria and Chloe. "You tricked me!" Liam roared, his face turning a violent shade of red. "This is fraud. Marriage fraud." "On the contrary," Isabella said, walking slowly toward the center of the room. "I never lied about who I was. I just never volunteered the information about my bank account, and you never asked. You were too busy talking about yourself." She stopped in front of the plaintiff's table. She looked down at the prenup she had just signed. "You were so desperate for this prenup, Liam," she said, a small, icy smile playing on her lips. "You wanted to ensure that what was yours remained yours, and what was mine remained mine. The irony is, you just signed away your only safety net." "What do you mean?" Liam whispered. "The prenup states that in the event of a divorce, neither party can claim assets titled to the other's business entities," Isabella recited from memory. "Since Harrington Enterprises is legally an asset of my holding company, and you just legally severed your ties to me." She leaned in close. "You're fired." "You can't fire me," Liam screamed. "I'm the Harrington heir." "You're an employee," Isabella corrected. "An at-will employee, and based on the performance review I've been conducting for the last 5 years, the embezzlement of company funds to pay for Chloe's apartment, the negligent mismanagement of the Tokyo branch, and the sexual harassment lawsuits you buried using company legal fees, you are terminated for cause, effective immediately." "Embezzlement?" Victoria gasped. "Liam?" "Shut up, mother," Liam snapped, panic rising in his chest. He turned to the judge. "Your Honor, you can't let her do this. This is my life." Judge Harrison looked at the papers Albert had provided. He closed the folder. "Mr. Harrington, it appears that legally, Mrs. Sterling, I apologize, Ms. Sterling, is entirely within her rights. The corporate ownership structure is clear. You insisted on a strict separation of assets. You got exactly what you asked for." The judge looked at Isabella with a newfound respect, and perhaps a touch of fear. "Miss Sterling, assuming these documents hold up, the divorce is granted per the terms of the prenup. Is there anything else?" "Yes, Your Honor," Isabella said, turning back to her lawyer, Albert. Albert reached into his briefcase and pulled out a second document, a thick, red folder. "We would like to submit evidence regarding the private loans Liam Harrington took out using company stock as collateral," Isabella said. "Since that stock was not his to leverage, he has committed securities fraud. The FBI is waiting in the lobby. Chloe, who had been sitting silently in shock, suddenly grabbed her purse and bolted for the door. "I wouldn't run, Chloe," Isabella called out without looking back. "The car you drove here, the Mercedes G-Wagon, it's leased under the company name. I reported it stolen 5 minutes ago." Chloe froze at the door, her hand on the handle, as 2 uniformed officers stepped into view through the glass panel. Liam slumped into his chair, his legs giving out. He looked at Isabella, really looked at her, for the first time in years. He didn't see the quiet girl who made his coffee. He saw a titan. "Why?" Liam rasped. "Why wait 5 years? Why let me treat you like that?" Isabella walked back to her table and picked up her cheap purse. She looked at him with eyes that held zero emotion. No hate, no love. Just indifference. "Because, Liam," she said, "I wanted to see if you were capable of being a good man without the promise of a reward. I wanted to see if you loved me, or just the idea of owning me. And when I realized you were incapable of love, I decided to wait until you built your house of cards so high that the fall would shatter you completely." She nodded to Albert. "Let's go. I have a board meeting at 3 p.m. We're liquidating the Harrington division." The scene outside the Manhattan Superior Court was a chaotic frenzy of flashing bulbs and shouting reporters. Word had leaked. It always did when billions of dollars shifted hands in the span of a heartbeat. The paparazzi, usually summoned by Liam's PR team to capture his triumphant bachelorhood, were now witnessing his absolute demolition. 2 federal agents, stone-faced and efficient, flanked Liam Harrington. His wrists, usually adorned with a Patek Philippe watch, were now bound in stainless steel handcuffs. He looked pale, almost green, as he was guided toward an unmarked black sedan. "Mr. Harrington, is it true you embezzled $40 million? Liam, did you know your wife was Isabella Sterling? Mrs. Harrington, Ms. Sterling! Over here." Isabella emerged from the courthouse doors a moment later, flanked by Albert Pendleton and 2 large security guards who had materialized from the shadows. She put on a pair of oversized black sunglasses, shielding her eyes not from the sun, but from the blinding flashes. She looked like a widow attending the funeral of her enemies. Victoria Harrington was running behind her, her heels clacking frantically on the pavement, her composure completely shattered. "Isabella! Wait, you can't do this!" Victoria screeched, grabbing at Isabella's sleeve. One of the security guards intercepted her arm, gently but firmly, pushing her back. Isabella stopped. She turned slowly. The crowd hushed, sensing the venom in the air. "I can't do what, Victoria?" Isabella asked, her voice low and dangerous. "He's your husband. He made a mistake," Victoria pleaded, tears streaming down her face, ruining her heavy mascara. "We are family. You lived in my house. I taught you how to set a table. I introduced you to society." Isabella laughed. It was a dry, hollow sound. "You taught me that I wasn't good enough because my father was a mechanic, or so I told you. You introduced me to society as your charity case. You made me sleep in the guest wing because you said I smelled of the kitchen. Do you remember that, Victoria?" "I was just trying to help you improve," Victoria stammered. "Please. The scandal. It will ruin the Harrington name." "The Harrington name is already ruined," Isabella said, adjusting her sunglasses. "And as for the house, you might want to head back there quickly." "Why?" Victoria asked, a new wave of fear washing over her. "Because the deed to the Greenwich estate was held by a shell company, Oakwood Properties," Albert Pendleton interjected smoothly, "which defaulted on its mortgage payments 3 months ago. The bank has initiated foreclosure proceedings. The eviction team is scheduled for, 10 minutes ago." Victoria's jaw dropped. But Liam said he paid the mortgage. Liam lied, Isabella said simply. He spent the mortgage money on a penthouse for Chloe in Soho. I bought the debt from the bank last week. I'm foreclosing. You have 1 hour to remove your personal effects before the locks are changed. I suggest you hurry. The traffic to Greenwich is terrible this time of day. Without another word, Isabella turned and slid into the back of a waiting Rolls-Royce Phantom. Albert got in beside her. The door closed with a heavy, reassuring thud, sealing out the noise of the screaming press and the wailing mother-in-law. Inside the car, the silence was luxurious. Isabella leaned her head back against the leather seat and closed her eyes. "Are you all right?" Albert asked gently. He had been her father's most trusted advisor, and now hers. He was the only one who knew the toll this 5-year charade had taken on her. "I'm tired, Albert," she whispered. 5 years of biting my tongue. 5 years of wearing cheap polyester and pretending not to understand stock options. 5 years of watching him look at other women right in front of me. "It's over now," Albert said. "The board is convened at the headquarters. They are waiting for the new chairman." "Let's go," Isabella said, opening her eyes. The fatigue was gone, replaced by steel. "I have a company to clean." Meanwhile, in the back of the federal vehicle, Liam was hyperventilating. "This is a mistake," he yelled at the agents. "My lawyer will have your badges. Do you know who I am?" "We know exactly who you are, Mr. Harrington," the agent in the passenger seat said, without turning around. "You're the guy who moved corporate assets into an offshore account in the Caymans labeled consulting fees. The SEC has been tracking the IP address. It traces back to your personal laptop." "I was advised to do that," Liam stammered. "My accountant." "Your accountant is currently cutting a deal in interrogation room B," the agent said. "He says you forced him to cook the books." Liam slumped back against the seat. His mind raced. Isabella. How? How could she be the Isabella Sterling? The Sterling family was American royalty, old money, oil, tech, real estate. They were the kind of wealthy that didn't appear on Forbes lists because they owned the people who wrote the lists. And he had made her cook his eggs. He had made her iron his shirts. He had cheated on her with his assistant, Chloe, a woman whose biggest ambition was to be an Instagram influencer. "I need to make a call," Liam said. "I get a phone call." "When we get to the station," the agent said. Liam's mind frantically scrolled through his contacts. Who could save him? His mother was useless without the estate. His friends were fair-weather sycophants who would drop him the moment the news hit TMZ. He thought of one name, Conrad Roth. Roth was Isabella's biggest competitor, a ruthless billionaire who had been trying to acquire Harrington Enterprises for years. Liam had secretly met with Roth 6 months ago, offering to sell him trade secrets in exchange for a seat on Roth's board. If anyone had the money and the motive to bail him out and help him fight Isabella, it was Roth. "I just need to get to a phone," Liam thought, a desperate plan forming. "I know where the skeletons are buried. Isabella thinks she's won, but she doesn't know what I stole from the archives. Back at the Greenwich estate, the scene was one of pathetic devastation. Victoria Harrington arrived in a taxi. Her driver had quit via text message 5 minutes prior to find a moving crew efficiently carrying furniture out onto the lawn. "Stop! Put that down! That's a Louis XIV commode!" Victoria screamed, running toward a mover carrying a gilded chest. "Ma'am, please step back," a large man with a clipboard said. "We have orders to clear the premises." "Who gave you those orders?" "The owner," the man said. Standing on the porch, watching the removal with a calm expression, was Beatrice, the head housekeeper. Beatrice had served the Harringtons for 20 years. She had been the one to secretly bring Isabella tea when Victoria was being particularly cruel. She was the one who had hugged Isabella when she cried in the laundry room. "Beatrice," Victoria gasped. "Do something! Tell them to stop! You run this house!" Beatrice slowly walked down the steps. She wasn't wearing her uniform. She was wearing a smart coat and holding a purse. "I don't work for you anymore, Mrs. Harrington," Beatrice said. "I resigned this morning." "You ungrateful," Victoria spluttered. "And," Beatrice continued, a small smile appearing, "I have been rehired by the new owner as the estate manager. Ms. Sterling has instructed me to oversee the renovation. She plans to turn this house into a shelter for women escaping domestic financial abuse." Victoria looked as if she had been slapped. "A shelter? In my house?" "It's not your house, Victoria," Beatrice said. "It never really was. You spent money you didn't have to impress people who didn't like you. Now, the movers have placed your personal clothing in those plastic bags on the curb. I suggest you collect them before it rains." Beatrice turned and walked back into the house, closing the heavy oak doors with a finality that echoed across the perfectly manicured lawn. Victoria Harrington stood alone in the driveway, surrounded by the debris of her vanity, as the first drops of rain began to fall. The headquarters of Harrington Enterprises was a glass monolith in the center of the financial district. For years, Liam had strutted through its lobby like a god, greeting no one, acknowledging no one. Today, the atmosphere was different. The air crackled with anxiety. Emails had circulated. The news was playing on every monitor in the trading pit. At 2:45 p.m., the revolving doors spun. Security guards stiffened. Receptionists stood up. Isabella Sterling walked in. She was no longer wearing the grey suit from court. She had changed into a tailored white power suit, sharp and immaculate. Her hair was pulled back in a severe, elegant bun. She didn't look like the waitress Liam had married. She looked like the CEO of a company that ate other companies for breakfast. Albert Pendleton walked a step behind her, carrying the weight of his authority. "Good afternoon, Miss Sterling," the head of security, a man named Mann, said. He had always been kind to Isabella when she visited Liam, often letting her wait in the warm lobby when Liam was too busy to see her. "Hello, Mann," Isabella said, stopping to look him in the eye. "You have a new directive. Liam Harrington is barred from the premises. If he steps foot on the property, you are to detain him and call the police. Is that clear?" "Crystal clear, ma'am," Mann said, a genuine smile touching his lips. He had hated Liam. Everyone did. Isabella walked to the elevators. She didn't need a pass. Mann swiped his master key for her. They shot up to the 50th floor, the executive suite. The elevator doors opened to reveal the chaos of the C-suite. Secretaries were shredding papers. Junior executives were packing boxes. Standing in the middle of the room was Simon Vance, the CFO. Vance was Liam's right-hand man, a slimy operator who had helped facilitate the embezzlement. He froze when he saw Isabella. "Isabella, I mean, Ms. Sterling," Vance stammered, sweating profusely. "We weren't expecting you so soon. We were just organizing files." "You mean destroying evidence?" Isabella corrected him calmly, walking past him toward the conference room. "Stop shredding, Simon. The IT department mirrored the servers remotely at midnight last night. We have digital copies of everything, every wire transfer, every deleted email, every falsified invoice." Vance went white. "That's illegal. You hacked us." "I audited my own company," Isabella said over her shoulder. "Albert, have security escort Mr. Vance out and ensure he leaves his company phone and laptop." "You can't do this," Vance yelled as two guards grabbed his arms. "I know things. I can bring this whole place down." "You already did," Isabella said. I'm here to rebuild it." She pushed open the double doors to the boardroom. The 12 members of the board of directors were already seated. They were old, rich men who had been happy to let Liam run the company into the ground as long as their dividends were paid. Now, they looked terrified. Isabella walked to the head of the table, Liam's chair. She didn't sit. She stood behind it, placing her hands on the leather. "Gentlemen," she began, her voice projecting effortlessly, "you have failed." The room was silent. You allowed a narcissist with no business acumen to drain the liquidity of this firm. You ignored the quarterly reports showing the hemorrhage of funds. You were complacent. "Now, see here," one of the directors, a man named George, blustered. "Liam fooled us all. We didn't know." "It was your job to know," Isabella snapped. "I have filed a motion to dissolve the current board. However, I am giving you a choice. You can resign gracefully today, keep your vested stock, and retire. Or you can fight me. If you fight me, I will release the internal audit that shows your negligence to the shareholders. You will be sued into oblivion." The silence stretched for 10 seconds. "I resign," George said quietly. "Me too," said another. One by one, they nodded. They were cowards. Isabella knew they would be. "Good," Isabella said. "Albert has your resignation letters prepared. Sign them on your way out." As the room cleared, leaving Isabella alone in the vast office that used to be her husband's kingdom, her phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. She answered it. "Isabella." The voice was raspy, desperate. It was Liam. "How did you get a phone, Liam?" she asked, walking to the window to look out at the city. "I have friends," Liam spat. "Listen to me. You think you've won? You haven't. You don't know what I have. You have nothing, Liam. You have no home, no job, no money, and soon, no freedom." "I have the Odyssey file," Liam said. Isabella froze. Her hand tightened on the phone. The Odyssey file was a myth, or so she thought. It was a rumored collection of data that her father, Tobias Sterling, had supposedly buried years ago. It contained sensitive information about the early days of Sterling Global, information that, if taken out of context, could look very damaging. "You're bluffing," she said. "Am I?" Liam laughed, a manic sound. "I found it in the old archives in the basement here. Your father and my grandfather did business in the 80s. Did you know that? I have the physical drive, Isabella, and I'm not alone. Conrad Roth is very interested in what's on it." Isabella's eyes narrowed. "Conrad Roth, the shark. If you release that, you destroy yourself too," Isabella said. "I'm already destroyed," Liam screamed. "I have nothing left to lose, but you have an empire to lose. Bring me $50 million in crypto, unmarked, or I give the drive to Roth, and he leaks it to the world. You have 24 hours. The line went dead. Isabella lowered the phone. She looked out at the skyline. The sun was setting, casting long shadows over the city. Albert walked back into the room. "The board is gone. We have full control. Are you ready to address the staff?" Isabella turned to him. Her face was pale. "Change of plans, Albert," she said. "Liam is out on bail, and he's with Conrad Roth." Albert's expression darkened. "Roth? That's dangerous." "It's worse," Isabella said. "Liam claims to have the Odyssey file." Albert, usually unflappable, looked genuinely alarmed. "That's impossible. Your father said he destroyed it." "Liam says he found it in the archives, a legacy from his grandfather." Isabella walked over to the desk and picked up a framed photo of Liam, the one he kept on his desk to simulate a happy life. She smashed it face down on the table. "He wants 50 million, Isabella said. "Blackmail. We call the FBI, Albert said. "No," Isabella said sharply. If that file contains what I think it does, the FBI can't see it either. Not yet. She walked to the door. Get the car, Albert. We aren't going home. We're going to pay a visit to Conrad Roth. Isabella, that's walking into the lion's den, Albert warned. Isabella smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. I am the lion, Albert. Conrad Roth is just a hyena, and Liam is the meat. The rain had turned into a torrential downpour, battering the sleek black sides of the Rolls-Royce as it cut through the traffic toward the Upper East Side. Isabella sat in the back, her face illuminated by the soft blue light of her tablet. She was reading the metadata of the Odyssey archive, or at least what she could access remotely. He's at the penthouse of the Obsidian Tower, Albert said from the front seat, checking his phone. Conrad Roth's private residence. Security is tighter than Fort Knox. We can't just walk in. Roth invited us, Isabella said, her eyes never leaving the screen. He thinks he has the upper hand. Men like Roth are arrogant. They believe that because they have a hostage, they control the negotiation. He forgets that the hostage he has is Liam. And Liam is a liability, Albert finished her thought. Exactly. Liam is volatile, stupid, and desperate. That's our leverage. The car pulled up to the curb. The Obsidian Tower was a monstrosity of black glass and steel, a testament to Conrad Roth's ego. 2 massive bodyguards in raincoats stood at the entrance. They didn't stop Isabella. They opened the door for her. Roth was expecting her. The elevator ride to the 90th floor took 40 seconds. The doors opened directly into a sprawling living room that overlooked the entire city. The decor was cold, chrome, leather, and abstract art that looked like violence captured on canvas. Conrad Roth stood by the fireplace, swirling a glass of amber liquid. He was a man in his 60s, silver-haired, tanned, with the kind of smile that didn't reach his predatory eyes. Sitting on a leather couch, looking disheveled and frantic, was Liam. He was still wearing the suit from court, now rumpled and stained. A half-empty bottle of whiskey sat on the table in front of him. "Isabella," Roth said, his voice smooth like velvet over gravel. "So kind of you to join our little reunion. I trust the rain didn't ruin your shoes." "My shoes are fine, Conrad," Isabella said, stepping into the room. Albert stayed by the elevator, his hands loosely at his sides, scanning the room. There were 3 other guards in the shadows. "I can't say the same for your carpet. Liam seems to be spilling his drink." Liam shot up, his eyes bloodshot. "Don't talk down to me. I have the drive, Isabella. I have it right here." He patted his jacket pocket frantically. "The Odyssey file. Proof that your father built Sterling Global on laundered money from the cartels in the 80s. If this gets out, your stock tanks. The SEC freezes your assets. You go to prison." Isabella didn't blink. She looked at Roth. "Is that what he told you, Conrad? That the file contains evidence of money laundering?" Roth took a sip of his drink. "I saw the headers, Isabella. Operation Wash. Cartel logistics. It looks damning. And frankly, even if it's not true, the leak alone would destroy your reputation. The market is fragile. Panic is easy to manufacture." "So, what is the price?" Isabella asked, folding her arms. "Liam asked for 50 million. I assume your price is higher." 50 million is pocket change, Roth scoffed, glancing at Liam with undisguised contempt. "Liam thinks small. I want the European division. You sign over the rights to your tech infrastructure in Berlin and London to Roth Industries, and the drive disappears. Liam gets his 50 million and a plane ticket to non-extradition country. Everyone wins." Liam grinned, a manic, desperate expression. "See, I told you. I win. I win." Isabella laughed. It started as a chuckle and grew into a genuine, amused laugh. She walked over to the bar, poured herself a glass of water, and turned to face them. "You boys are adorable," she said. "You really didn't try to open the files, did you?" Liam frowned. "It's encrypted. We need the password. That's why you're here." "No," Isabella corrected. "You're right that it's encrypted, but you're wrong about what's inside. My father didn't launder money for cartels. He worked with the CIA to track cartel money. Odyssey wasn't a crime. It was a sting operation. The files you have? They aren't evidence of my father's guilt. They are evidence of the people he caught." She took a sip of water, her eyes locking onto Roth's. "And do you know who appears in those ledgers, Conrad? Who was banking the cartel money before my father shut them down? I believe the code name was Viper." Roth's smile vanished. The glass in his hand stopped moving. The room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. "You're bluffing?" Roth whispered. "Am I?" Isabella reached into her purse. The guards flinched, reaching for their weapons. Albert took a step forward, but Isabella only pulled out a small silver USB drive of her own. "I have the decryption key. We can open it right now. If I'm lying, you can leak it and destroy me. But if I'm right, and we see Conrad Roth listed as the primary beneficiary of the Sinaloa accounts in 1989, then you go to federal prison for the rest of your life." Liam looked between them, confusion clouding his drunk mind. "Wait, what? Roth? You said you were clean." "Shut up, you idiot," Roth snapped at Liam. He stared at Isabella. "You wouldn't dare. If you open that file, we both go down. Mutual destruction." "No," Isabella said coldly. "My father was the informant. He has immunity, posthumously. I have nothing to fear. But you—" She took a step closer. "I'll make you a counteroffer, Conrad. You give me the drive Liam stole. You withdraw your bid for the Harrington acquisition, and you retire today. You step down as CEO of Roth Industries, citing health reasons. If you do that, the Viper file stays buried." Roth's face turned a violent shade of purple. The veins in his neck bulged. He looked at the drive in Isabella's hand, then at the drive in Liam's pocket. "And him?" Roth pointed at Liam. "I don't care what happens to him," Isabella said, not even looking at her ex-husband. "He's irrelevant." Liam's face crumpled. "Irrelevant! I'm the one who found it. I'm the partner." "You're a delivery boy, Liam," Roth spat, "and a bad one at that." Roth looked at Isabella. He was a gambler, but he knew when the house had the cards. "Fine. Deal. Take the drive." Roth snapped his fingers at Liam. "Give it to her." "No!" Liam screamed, backing away toward the balcony doors. "No. I want my money. I'm not leaving with nothing. I'll leak it myself. I'll put it on the internet right now." He pulled out a smartphone and held the drive next to it. "I took photos of the encrypted code. Hackers will crack it eventually." "Liam, don't," Isabella warned, her voice losing its mocking tone. "You don't know what you're doing." "I'm burning it all down," Liam yelled. He fumbled with the phone, his thumbs hitting the screen. "Send to the New York Times." "Stop him," Roth shouted to his guards. But before the guards could move, Liam pressed send. A moment of silence hung in the room. "There," Liam panted, tears streaming down his face. "It's gone, it's out. Now we're all ruined." Isabella sighed. She looked at Albert. "He actually did it." Albert checked his watch. "The firewall intercepted it, Mum?" "Of course," Isabella said. "But not the firewall, he thinks." She looked at Liam with pity. "You didn't send that to the New York Times, Liam. You sent it to the FBI Cyber Crimes Division. My father set up a dead man switch on that data. Any unauthorized attempt to transmit those headers automatically reroutes to the Bureau." Sirens began to wail in the distance, growing louder by the second. Roth's face went white. He turned to Liam. "You imbecile! You just emailed my confession to the feds." Liam stammered. "Gentlemen," Isabella said, smoothing her skirt. "It's been a pleasure, but I really must be going. I hate being around when the SWAT team arrives. It's so noisy." The chaos that ensued at the Obsidian Tower was broadcast live on every major news network. Helicopters circled the building, their spotlights cutting through the rain. The lower entrance was blockaded by black SUVs. Isabella and Albert had exited via the service elevator 5 minutes before the lockdown initiated. They sat in the back of the Rolls-Royce, parked 2 blocks away, watching the feed on the car's television screen. "Breaking news," the anchor announced. "Billionaire Conrad Roth and disgraced heir Liam Harrington have been taken into custody following a massive data leak that alleges decades of international money laundering. Sources say the evidence was self-incriminated via an email sent from Roth's own IP address." On the screen, the cameras zoomed in. Conrad Roth was being led out in handcuffs, his head covered by a jacket. Following him was Liam. Liam wasn't hiding his face. He was weeping openly, screaming something at the cameras that the microphones couldn't quite pick up. He looked like a child who had lost his mother in a supermarket, utterly broken. "He looks pathetic," Albert noted, his voice devoid of sympathy. "He is pathetic," Isabella said softly. "He always was. I just provided the mirror." "What happens to him now?" Albert asked. "Federal charges for corporate espionage, theft of trade secrets, and attempted blackmail," Isabella recited, "plus the embezzlement charges I filed this morning. And since he technically facilitated the distribution of the cartel data, he'll be named a co-conspirator in Roth's RICO case. He's looking at 20 years. Minimum." Isabella turned off the TV. The image of Liam's crying face vanished into black. "Take me to the diner, Albert," she said. Albert blinked, surprised for the first time that day. "The diner? In Brooklyn? It's nearly midnight, Mom." "I know, but I need a cup of coffee, and I need to remember." The Starlight Diner in Brooklyn was a relic of the 1950s, smelling of grease, old coffee, and disinfectant. It was quiet, with only a trucker eating a slice of pie at the counter. Isabella walked in. She was still wearing her white power suit, which looked alien in the dingy setting. She sat in the booth in the back corner. Booth 4. The waitress, an older woman named Peggy, with tired eyes and a kind smile, walked over with a pot of coffee. She squinted at Isabella. "I'll be Bella?" Peggy gasped, nearly dropping the pot. "Is that you, honey?" "Hi, Peggy," Isabella smiled. It was the first genuine smile she had worn all day. "Lord, have mercy, look at you." Peggy wiped her hands on her apron. "I saw you on the TV. They said you own the whole world now or something. What are you doing here?" "I just needed to sit in booth 4 for a minute," Isabella said. "Coffee, please." "Black." Peggy poured the coffee. "This is where you met him, isn't it? That boy. Liam." "Yes," Isabella nodded, tracing the crack in the Formica table with her finger. 5 years ago. He came in for a burger. He was charming. He tipped well. He told me I was too pretty to be working here." "I remember," Peggy said. "You were so happy. You thought he was Prince Charming." "He was," Isabella said, "until he wasn't." Isabella looked around the diner. This was where she had hidden from her own life. After her father died, she had been overwhelmed by the sharks, the lawyers, the weight of the sterling legacy. She had run away, taken a fake name, and taken a job here just to feel normal, to feel like a human being instead of a walking bank account. Meeting Liam had been the fairy tale. He didn't know who she was. He loved her, or so she thought. She remembered the shift. It happened about 6 months into the marriage. The insults disguised as jokes. The isolation. You don't understand business, honey. Let me handle it. Why can't you dress more like Chloe? My mother is right. You're embarrassing me. She had stayed, hoping the Prince Charming would come back. She had revealed her identity to him in small ways, offering business advice, fixing his spreadsheets, but he always shot her down, calling her stupid. Today was the funeral of that hope. He's in jail now, Peggy, Isabella said quietly. Good, Peggy said firmly. He never deserved you. Even when you were just a waitress, you had more class in your pinky finger than he had in his whole body. The bell above the door chimed. Albert walked in. He looked out of place among the vinyl seats, but he marched over to the booth. Mom, Albert said gently, we have a situation. What now, Albert? Can't a woman mourn her marriage in peace? It's not Liam, Albert said. It's the board. They've convened an emergency meeting. The stock price is rallying. The public loves the story. The underdog billionaire. The waitress tycoon. You're trending globally. One Team Isabella is the #1 hashtag. Isabella looked at her phone. Millions of notifications. Strangers cheering for her. People sharing stories of their own toxic relationships. She wasn't just a CEO anymore. She was a symbol of vindication. They want a statement, Albert said. And Victoria Harrington is on the line. She's at the precinct. She can't make bail for Liam. She's asking for a loan. Isabella stood up. She placed a $100 bill on the table for a $2 coffee. Tell Victoria, Isabella said, putting on her coat, that the bank of Isabella is closed permanently. But I hear the diner is hiring. Tell her to ask for Peggy. Peggy let out a loud cackle of laughter. You send her here, Bella. I'll have her scrubbing the grease trap in 10 minutes. Let's go, Albert, Isabella said, walking toward the door. We have an empire to run. 6 months had passed since the rain-soaked night at the Obsidian Tower. The seasons had changed, washing away the grey slush of a New York winter and replacing it with the vibrant bloom of spring. For Isabella Sterling, the city had been reborn. The headquarters of what was formerly Harrington Enterprises had undergone a radical transformation. The oppressive oak paneling Liam favored was gone, replaced by glass and sunlight. The sign on the building now read, The Sterling Harrington Foundation. Since Isabella had taken over operations and purged the corrupt board members, profits had tripled. Isabella sat in her office, reviewing the quarterly earnings, when Albert Pendleton entered. He looked relaxed, the lines of worry finally gone from his face. The gala starts in an hour, Ms. Sterling, Albert said. But first the verdict came in this morning. Isabella turned her chair. She didn't feel the pounding heart she used to get whenever Liam was mentioned. She just felt a distant curiosity. And? Liam Harrington was found guilty on all counts, Albert recited with satisfaction. Embezzlement, securities fraud, and conspiracy. He received 15 years in federal prison. Conrad Roth got 25. The Obsidian Tower is being auctioned off next month. Justice is served, Isabella said quietly. Albert hesitated, then pulled a crumpled envelope from his pocket. Liam sent this through his lawyer. He wanted you to read it before he was transferred to maximum security. Isabella took the envelope. She recognized the frantic scrawl. Isabella. She thought about reading his excuses, how he would blame his mother, the stress, or claim he still loved her. Without a word, she dropped the unopened envelope into the shredder. The machine whirred, consuming the last words Liam Harrington would ever speak to her. I know everything he has to say, she said, and none of it matters anymore. The Sterling Charity Gala at the Plaza Hotel was the event of the season. Unlike the stuffy parties Victoria Harrington used to drag her to, this event was vibrant and alive. Isabella moved through the crowd in a midnight blue silk gown, no longer the invisible wife, but the sun everyone orbited. She spotted Beatrice, the former housekeeper, now the director of operations for the new domestic abuse shelter network. Beatrice looked 10 years younger. "Ms. Sterling," Beatrice beamed. "We opened the Greenwich house yesterday. 5 families moved in. But you'll never guess who I saw outside the gates." Isabella raised an eyebrow. "Victoria?" "She was standing across the street," Beatrice whispered. "She looked rough. She was demanding to see the manager, claiming she left her pearl necklace in the safe." I told her the truth. Liam pawned those pearls 2 years ago to pay a gambling debt. She just sat on the curb and cried. Isabella felt a fleeting twinge of pity. Victoria had valued things over people, and now she had neither. Let her cry. Maybe it'll wash away some of the bitterness. Later, a tall man with kind eyes approached her. It was Dr. Lucas Bennett, head of the pediatric hospital Isabella was funding. "Ms. Sterling," Lucas said warmly, "I just wanted to thank you. The new wing you approved saved lives today." "I'm glad, Doctor," she replied, shaking his hand. His grip was honest. He didn't look at her like a bank account, but like a person. "Please call me Lucas," he smiled. "And if you're not too busy running the world, perhaps I could buy you a coffee. Not to discuss funding, just coffee." For 5 years, Isabella had been told she was unlovable. Now, looking at Lucas, she saw genuine interest. "I am busy running the world, Lucas," she said with a playful smile. "But I can make time for coffee, as long as it's at the Starlight Diner in Brooklyn." Lucas laughed. "It's a date." As he walked away, Albert appeared with 2 glasses of champagne. "A new prospect?" "Maybe," Isabella said, stepping out onto the balcony. The cool night air tasted like freedom. Or maybe just a friend. "For the first time, Albert, I don't need to know what happens next. I'm just happy to be writing the story myself." She looked out at the glittering grid of New York City. Somewhere, Liam was staring at a concrete wall. But here, the phoenix had risen. Isabella raised her glass to the skyline. "Checkmate," she whispered. So there you have it. Liam and Victoria thought they could crush Isabella. They thought her silence was weakness and her kindness was stupidity. They forced her to sign those papers, thinking they were robbing her. But in reality, they were freeing her. They learned the hard way that when you strip someone of everything, you leave them with nothing to lose. And a person with nothing to lose is the most dangerous opponent in the world. Isabella didn't just win her company back. She won her dignity back. She proved that true power isn't about how loud you shout, but about how long you can hold your ground when the world tries to move you. If you enjoyed this story of sweet, satisfying revenge and justice, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow. What would you have done if you were in Isabella's shoes? Would you have forgiven Liam? Or did he get exactly what he deserved? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss a story. We have plenty more tales of karma and underdog revenge coming your way. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.